Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from the A group, from B class. We would like to give explanation about translation technology in Canada. The group members are first one Puspita Kumala Dewi, and then the second one Sofia Kamal, which is me, and then Durziadatul Umi, Ahmad Rasif Lauzai, Darmawati Burhanuddin, Muhammad Rozikin, and Andi Andung. The table of contents here include the first one introduction, the second one the advent of the first computerized tools, the third one is machine translation, the fourth one is machine aided human translation, and then the last one is the current situation. And then the last part of this video is our group video answering the questions that has been given. Yeah.
Okay, the next slide is introduction. The introduction is technology understood here as machinery and equipment developed from the application of scientific knowledge for the solution of practical problem. Is clearly an evolving and historically conditioned nation. The Canadian Translation Bureau in 1981. The Bureau is the largest employer of language professionals in the country and the government principal center of expertise on all matters involving translation and linguistic service. Upon my arrival at the Bureau, the equipment I was given to support me in my work was an electric typewriter. Compared to the manual machines that had long been in use, this was considered to be significant technological advance. Powered by a humming electric motor, it produced cleaner, more even copy, and funded less manual force on the part of the typist. Nah, in this slide, explain about historical about machine translation in Kanada. Nah, di Biro Penerjemahan Kanada ini dimulai pada tahun 1981 dan Biro ini merupakan suatu lembaga pemberi kerja terbesar bagi para profesional bahasa di Kanada dan merupakan suatu pusat keahlian utama pemerintah dalam segala hal yang melibatkan layanan penerjemahan dan linguistik. Biro yang ada di Kanada ini sangat menjamin sangat menunjang pekerjaan setiap pegawainya karena diberikan peralatan untuk menyelesaikan suatu pekerjaannya yang dimana sangat menunjang pekerjaannya karena menggunakan suatu mesin listrik dan dibandingkan dengan mesin manual yang sudah lama digunakan. Dalam hal ini sangat dinilai kemajuan teknologi yang sangat signifikan karena didukung adanya motor listrik yang berdengung dan mesin ini menghasilkan salinan yang lebih bersih, lebih rata dan memerlukan lebih sedikit tenaga manual dari pihak juru ketik. Okay, the next slide is not all my colleagues at the Translation Bureau in those years used a typewriter to draft their target text. A fair number preferred to dictate their translation using a handheld recording device commonly known as a dictaphone. Aside from these two basic pieces of equipment, the dictaphone and the electric typewriter, Canadian translator, as far as I could tell, had access to very little else in the way of technology at the time. In short, the practice of translation in Canada some 30 years ago benefited very little from what we would consider technology today. In this slide, explain about tentang bagaimana para pekerja di biro tersebut membandingkan dua alat yang mereka gunakan. Nah, di sini cukup banyak orang yang lebih suka mendiktekan terjemahan mereka menggunakan alat perekam genggam yang pada umumnya dikenal sebagai diktafon. Selain dua peralatan dasar tersebut, diktafon dan mesin tik listrik, para penerjemah Kanada tersebut sejauh yang mereka tahu hanya memiliki sedikit akses terhadap teknologi lain pada saat itu. Nah, pada saat itu penerjemahan di Kanada sekitar 30 tahun yang lalu hanya mendapat sedikit manfaat dari apa yang kita anggap sebagai teknologi saat ini. Okay, that's all from me. The next slide will be explained by my friend.
Okay, the next is the advent of the first computerized tools. Things began to change just a few years later with the arrival at the Translation Bureau of the first dedicated word processing machines. These bulky monsters, which were actually invented by a Canadian, feature a keyboard and a video screen, and were dedicated in the sense of the word. Processing was all they were designed to do. Unlike the general-purpose programmable microcomputers that later supplanted them. Oke, jadi maksud slide yang tadi saya baca, di sini maksudnya segalanya mulai berubah hanya beberapa tahun kemudian dengan hadirnya mesin pengolah kata khusus pertama di Biro Penerjemahan di Kanada. Maksudnya di sini yaitu mesin translation or Google Translate. Okay, next, the other technological innovation that had a significant impact of Canadian translator in the mid-1980 was facilitated access to Termium, the government's large computerized terminology bank, originally developed at the University of Montreal in the early 1970. Termium was acquired by the government of Canada in 1975 in an effort to help standardize the technical terminology and official appellation in the officially bilingual federal public sector. Jadi maksudnya di sini inovasi teknologi lain yang mempunyai dampak signifikan terhadap penerjemah di Kanada ditemukan pada tahun 1980-an. Yaitu fasilitasi akses ke Termium, bank terminologi terkomputerisasi milik pemerintah. Jadi awalnya dikembangkan di Universitas Montreal pada awal tahun 1970-an. Termium kemudian diakuisisi oleh pemerintah Kanada pada tahun 1975, yaitu dalam upaya membantu membakukan terminologi teknis dan sebutan resmi dalam layanan publik federal yang resmi bilingual. Then shortly after its acquisition, the government began a major scale-up of the database, as well as a fundamental revamping of the underlying software. By the time Termium 3 was realized that in 1985, the bank contained over 1 million records and its network of users numbered about 2,500 people, the great majority of whom were government translation and other civil servants. Jadi, belum lama setelah diakuisisi, pemerintah mulai meningkatkan besar-besaran terhadap basis data serta pembenahan mendasar pada perangkat lunak yang mendasarnya yaitu pada saat Termium ketiga dirilis pada tahun 1985. Bank tersebut memiliki lebih dari 1 juta catatan dan jaringan penggunaannya berjumlah sekitar 2.500 orang. Mention was made in the previous paragraph of the fact that the public service in Canada is officially bilingual, since official bilingualism has had extremely important consequences for the translation industry in this country. In 1969, the Canadian Parliament passed of the Official Language Act, which consecrated English and French as the country's two official language, both having equal status. As a result of this act, all Canadians have the right to service from the federal government in the official language of their choices. And all federal public servants have the right to work in one or other official language. Jadi, di penjelasan sebelumnya telah disebutkan fakta bahwa pelayanan publik di Kanada secara resmi bersifat bilingual. Karena bilingualisme resmi mempunyai konsekuensi yang sangat penting bagi industri penerjemah di negeri ini. Pada tahun 1969, Parlemen Kanada mengesahkan Undang-Undang Bahasa Resmi yang menetapkan bahasa Inggris dan Prancis sebagai dua bahasa resmi di negara tersebut. Jadi keduanya memiliki status yang setara. Sebagai akibat dari undang-undang tersebut, semua warga Kanada berhak atas layanan dari pemerintah federal dalam bahasa resmi pilihan mereka. Dan semua pegawai negeri federal berhak untuk bekerja dalam satu atau bahasa resmi lainnya. Thank you. Next, move to the next slide. Okay, next I will explain about mention at least one things that make us interested in the topic and why. We found two things that make us interested in the topic discussed. First, in 1969, the Canadian Parliament passed the Official Language Act, which consecrated English and French as the country's two official languages, both having equal status. As a result of this act, all Canadians have the right to service from the federal government in the official language of their choices, and all federal public servants have the right to work and in one or other official language. Jadi yang membuat saya tertarik pada pembahasan kali ini yaitu di negara Kanada pada tahun 1969 terdapat dua bahasa yaitu Inggris dan Prancis yang diterapkan. Yang dimana tidak semua negara menerapkan hal tersebut. Selain itu, semua warga negara bebas memilih bahasa resmi yang ingin mereka gunakan. For the next number will be explained by Kak Andi.
Here I would like to give explanation about the machine translation part in Canada, and my name is Sofia Kamal. And in accordance to the writer experience and perspective, the writer had worked at TAUM for 4 years, and TAUM stands for Machine Translation at the University of Montreal, and this TAUM is research group, machine translation research group, and they designed the MT system for the government that translates the about the weather bulletins. The name of this group is TAUM Meteo. And then the Meteo successor until this day still translates weather bulletins that published by the Environment Canada. And then these weather bulletins have highly restricted sublanguage, and it was designed to handle only the telegraphic portion of the bulletin that explained about the weather condition of the weather bulletin itself. And then it used language that is more free-ranging in accordance to the writer perspective. And then the translators there was asked to revise the output of the translation, the translation itself. And they agreed to do that because some reason. The first reason is because the quality of the system is quite good, the machine quality. And then secondly, the reason why they agree to do that is because they don't have to do the boring and repetitive activity in translating tasks. And the clients of the departments actually feel that the requirement has been fulfilled by the translators, which is the translation is way quicker, it and it is not as expensive as regular translation, which is and it means the translation that they do is quicker and less expensive. And then the government give the TAU Meteo a project, and this project is involved around the new coastal patrol aircraft, and the name of the project is TAUM Aviation Project, and they asked to create new machine that will is the government work, and this project started in 1977, and these aviation manuals have more complicated syntax and limited vocabulary of weather bulletins, and this project require large dictionaries that contains of many terms, different terms from weather bulletin terms, and a full computational grammar of English, and then because of that, grammars and dictionaries had been newly developed for the aim of this project, and the characteristic of the second generation. And this project have the characteristic of generation of rule-based system, and it has higher level formal language, and there is three distinct linguistic phases in this rule based system in the second generation. The first one is language analysis, and then bilingual transfer and monolingual generation phase. We know that this in Canada is bilingual, which is French and English, and then during this process of doing the project, the translators there realized that what they do is the aim of what they have been doing in this project is not to replace the human translators, but to make the work of human translators way more effective and way more productive. And this project had been going on for 4 years, and it was a successful project, and the machine had a very good quality, but there is problem in this machine, which it covers the inability to translate, and it cannot translate too many sentences, and it cannot translate material from outside the domain of the machine translation that have been made. uh, then the system is expensive. Um, Therefore, in 1981, the project was come to an end, and then the team of this project was disbanded, first fully disbanded, and then um, the conclusion here, the writers saw that the fail of this project has the similarities caused with the failure of machine translation development during the late of 1970s and 1980s. This problem involves around the expensiveness, the cost of the machine translation system, which is involved around the commercial system market in USA. This system is way too expensive for individual translators, and it it is quite affordable just for company, just for corporation, not for individual translators. And the output of this machine translation also not consistent enough, and then here it can be said that the development of rule-based approach in the second generation is quite challenging. And then in the late of 1990s, statistical machine translation, or the abbreviation is SMT, was developed.
Okay, machine-aided translation. Joshua Barhiller, who was the first full-time MT researcher in history, was also the first to demonstrate that fully automatic, high-quality machine translation of unrestricted text, sometimes abbreviated as FACTUT, is in fact impossible. Fully automatic empty system could produce high quality, but only in restricted domains, as demonstrated by the meta system. Otherwise, when fully automatic systems were applied to unrestricted text, it was high quality that would have to be forfeited. On the other hand, if high quality was a sine qua non, particularly for the translation of text in parti- particularly for the translation of text in wide-ranging domains, then a compromise would have to be made on full automation. Not surprisingly, many of their large-scale corporate clients began to look to machine translation, hoping to find in the technology a solution to their pressing practical problems. It was in this context that Martin Kay published his seminal paper, The Proper Place of Man and Machine in Language Translation, in which he reiterate Barhil's argument on the unfeasibility of FACTUT and advanced instead a more modest program of machine-aided human translation. While this may not have been the message that many of the large clients of translation wanted to hear, it was also the approach adopted by the research group directed by Pierre Isabelle at the Canadian Workplace Automation Research Centre in Montreal, Quebec. McLovich, it was first proposed by a team of researchers at IBM who were intent on applying to translation the same statistical technique which had proven so successful in automatic speech recognition. This was the data from which their machine learning algorithm automatically acquired its translation knowledge, as opposite to the traditional rationalist approach in which linguists and lexicographers relied on their intuition to craft declarative rules. It is interesting to note that he translated corpus that proved critical to the IBM group, both because of its size and its quality, came from the Canadian House of Commons, where all debates were required by law to be translated into the other official language. What allowed the IBM group to actually exploit the data was the development of automatic alignment programs, which calculate formal links between was the development of automatic alignment programs uh, which calculate formal links between corresponding sentences in two files, one containing the source text and the other its translation. Texts that are linked in this way were first called B-texts by Brian Harris, a professor of translation at the University of Ottawa, who was also among the first to appreciate their potential usefulness for human translator. For the machine learning algorithm used in SMT to work effectively, the B-text to which they are applied must be extremely large, in the million of words, far more than anyone could ever align by hand.
Okay, next material by me. The Translator's Foundation project was developed to integrate various of the cell program into user-friendly interface for translator, which was a challenge at the time due to limitation in hardware and operating system. The central component of the foundation remained a word processing program with additional applications for glossary management, grammar and spell checking, French verb conjunction, and file comparison. Attempts were made to provide translators with a full page monitor and link their workstation together in a local area network. And what is the main point? The main point of the given text is that the CITI developed a translator support tool called Transearch, which utilizes big technology to provide translators with access to a database of parallel texts and their corresponding translation. This tool proved to be popular among translators and was eventually transferred to private sector partners for management and regular updates. And the next, the city's TransCheck project aimed to develop a transition checker that focused on bilingual error, but it faced challenge in enforcing terminological consistency and did not achieve widespread adoption. The TransType project proposed a new editing environment for translators that utilize an embedded SMT system to generate potential translation and offer suggestions to the user, and it received a research grant and valuable feedback from translation company. The project explored research question and on how an SMT engine can learn from user interaction in real time. Okay, next material by deliver my friend. Time is yours.
Okay, the current situation. For a country with a relatively small proportion of the world population, about 0.5%, Canada accounts for a surprisingly large proportion of the world's translation production. Approximately 10%, according to a recent study by PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2012. It is difficult to obtain recent accurate figures on the number of Canadian translators, but one federal government website mentions an average 10,215 person and 50%, including terminologists and interpreters, between the years 2008 and 2010. The government's own translation bureau is by far the largest service in the country, with over 1,200 full-time employees. And the great bulk of translation that is done in Canada is still between the two official languages, English and French. Finally, translators are relatively well paid in Canada compared to their colleagues in other countries. The Service Canada website puts their average annual income at $50,000. So, in 2008, the American Translators Association published a study which showed that the three most commonly used technology tools among its members were word processing application, 98% usage, translation memory application, 47% usage, and terminology management software, 27% usage. MME Traveler also asked her respondents to assess their use of language technologies. 97% of respondents who indicated that they used language technologies claimed that they helped save time. 90% claimed that they improved the quality of their work, and 90% claimed that they increased the uniformity of their work, and 44% of the respondents claimed that it was a requirement of their employer or their clients. Okay, perhaps the best known of these cell translation memory systems, they include Multicorpora and its multi-trans product, Terminatix and its highly regarded Logitron system, and JaiFusion. Several Canadian companies have developed sophisticated systems for managing translation workflow, including Multicorpora's Prism Flow and Logosoft TransFlow. The latter company also offers a bilingual concordancer called Traduit, while Terminatix has developed Synchroterm, a bilingual term extraction tool, as well as a line factory, an automatic alignment program that facilitates the creation of bytext. Machine translation, although a key productivity enhancing tool, is generally not considered to produce a level of quality sufficient to correctly convey a full message in another language, and its output must be reviewed by a qualified translator. As a result of the significant post-process editing, machine translation is not widely adopted. It is generally used for large volume translations with a accuracy rate of 75% to 85%.
Okay, I will continue the presentation. The next is still about the current situation in machine technology in Canada. As for the need to have the machine translation output reviewed by a qualified human translator, this in itself is not sufficient reason to discard the technology. The question is whether statistical machine translation has reached a level where output can be cost effectively post-edit. Even recent improvement in machine translation and the possibility of training system for well-defined domains. Evidence suggests that the answer may be yes, with major translation firms exploring machine translation integration into their operation. Automatic speech recognition or EISR is a promising technology that has revolutionized the next entry process for translation in Canada. Previously, Taishan was preferred due to its speed and allowing translators to focus on their specialization. However, the advent of personal computer and the difficulty in finding competent typists led to the shift to typing target text on PC, presenting challenge for many translators. In 2011, consultation sessions with Federal Translation Bureau employees revealed that many translators continue to edit their text, including older and younger employees using commercial ASRO system like Dragonetally Speaking. This technology could potentially resolve difficulties for translators by allowing them to return to dictation and lower operating costs for translation manager by eliminating the need for typists. The real-world performance of advanced speech recognition system is improving, but there is still a gap in speech recognition errors that translator must correct, reducing productivity. While progress has been made, backward error rates remain unforgivable for many translators, especially in languages other than English. The next is about the question.
So here we would like to answer the first question, and then the question is, what is the main concept or key thought of this chapter, and what do you think is essential? Okay, answer it.
Okay, so the main concept is about the development of machine translation in Canada regarding the writer's perspective and experience. The essential part of this chapter involves Canadian government's rules apply bilingual system in the country. It is English and French as the main language.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the key concept is about the development of translation in Canada, and the Canada here use bilingual system, which is English and French, and there are two basic equipment that was used by the Canadian translator back then. The first one is dictaphone and electric typewriter, because it is around 1977, and and then therefore the role of development of machine translation, and the role of the translators in Canada is important. And the development here involve around the participation from the AUM group and then the machine translation Meteo system. And that was all from us.
Okay, the question is, what can you practice directly after studying the topic? So, after studying the topic, we can operate one of the Canadian translator technology, namely Termium Plus. So, Termium Plus is one of the largest terminology and linguistic data banks in the world. It gives us access to millions of terms in English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. We can find terms, abbreviations, definitions, and usage examples in a wide range of specialized fields. So, the data bank is an essential tool for understanding an acronym, checking an official title, and finding an equivalent in another language, and much more. So I want to explain the steps. The first step is click this link, or you can go to the Google and search Termium website. So for the second step, we have to type the keyword on the search column. For example, I want to take word relationship. So after that, you have to click enter, and here we are, the result. I wanna read the result. First, although largely synonymous, the words relation and relationship are interchangeable, and the second both express the idea of the connection between things or person. However, relationship tends to be preferred for a human connection, relation for more abstract connections. For next slide will be continued by my friends. Thank you.
Okay, the next is the main goal of MT is full automation, high quality, and general applicability. But when fully automatic system were applied to unrestricted text, it was high quality that will have to be forfeited. On the other hand, if high quality was a sine qua non, particularly for the translation of text in wide-ranging domains, the compromise would have to be made on full automation.